Truth Not Trends.
Oh, it's got to be bigger than that, man. We're not Truth Not Trends. We're Truth Not Trends.
Boom, baby!
This is Jesse Schmidt and Liam Bauer coming to you from the Truth Not Trends podcast, where we teach you how to maximize your strength as safely and efficiently as possible.
Changing the world one set at a time. Come over and see us at truthnottrends.com.
That's right. Podcast, blog, online training, you name it. We'll teach you how to get amazing results in the gym or at home in minimal amount of time. Head on over and subscribe to the Truth Not Trends podcast. A lot of good stuff.
Hello? 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 If you can hear this, it's not too late. I've returned to warn you. This is Time Pop, a podcast that discusses time travel and pop culture. There are spoilers. I've seen the future, and nothing is sacred to these folks. Your past, present, and future are sure to be ruined. Even if you could go back in time, as I have, you will never forget what you are about to hear. You've been warned. This is Time Pop.
Ready to party?
Sure.
Welcome, Chrononauts, as we guide you through the experience of time travel using James Brolin as our Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
We will be your Constance. I am Des.
And I'm Ari.
And this is
Time Pop.
Yeah.
We're getting better. We're getting better.
Our 20th shelter episode. We're figuring this out.
Yeah.
Oh, so we watched Men in Black the Third.
Yeah.
And you had just obviously this was on our list, and I'm sure we would have gotten to it at some point, but you just kind of organically were working your way through the trilogy with your household.
Mm-hmm.
And how's that whole experience been for you in this great year of our Lord 2012?
12?
God damn it.
Wow, I think Desmond himself has been doing some time traveling.
This movie was released in 2012. 8 years later, it is 2020.
It's going to be one of those nights, huh?
This is not the year of our Lord. Because as everyone knows, the world ended in 2012 and the disaster is just slowly eating us away.
Welcome.
Anyways. And this is the second movie in a row that I have been able to watch through my personal DVD collection. How about that?
You have this movie on DVD?
I do, because just about the only movies I'll purchase anymore are cheap movie packs. And so if I can get a whole trilogy for $8, then
you're on it.
I'm on it. I enjoy the movies. They're cheap and they don't take up a lot of space on my shelf.
So how many times have you seen this movie then?
Probably only 2 or 3
times.
Like, this is definitely, one of those movies I've had on in the background a lot. I think the biggest problem with this movie is I tend to watch it as I'm trying to bang out the trilogy. And I'm usually not doing it with anybody. It's just something I want to do while I'm sitting around the house. And so by the time I get to the third one, I'm either a little over the whole Men in Black thing totally, so it's really, really in the background, or it's late. Yeah, something, because this is probably the first time that I've jumped to Men in Black 3 and just watched it. And this movie is amazing.
Okay, so I have to say, I fully enjoy this movie. I find it very entertaining.
Yeah, it's so good.
MIB 3.
Yeah, and I happened to, so I watched it. I got up early this morning. I watched most of it, and then I had to watch the last half hour a little later in the day, and then I was still doing some stuff in the studio. So I started it again, and I'm really glad I did, because it's really smart.
Yeah.
Like, there's some stuff I missed the first time through that after watching the end and then jumping to the beginning again, I was like, wow, they really put this together well.
Yeah, they did, especially if you're familiar with the first and second movie. It kind of ties them all together, especially the first one. It does well kind of wrapping up the trilogy.
Yeah, I've seen 1 a lot. I've seen 2 a couple times. I don't really remember it, because 2 is kind of one of those classic like trilogies where I feel like they do this a lot. Where like 1 and 3 make a really good sequel, and then 2 is just kind of a romp.
Yeah, that's kind of what this was.
Yeah. And then I even put on International recently, but that one I really had on in the background, so I can't speak to that one at all. I know it hasn't fared well.
Yeah, we just watched it. It's not very good.
Is it? Okay. Bummer. Did you enjoy it like with Zoe there? Did she get a kick
Yeah,
out of
Zoe
it?
watched it. I fell asleep for like the middle part of it, so I
Okay.
can't speak to how the whole thing is, but it doesn't. It definitely has a different feel. It's not the same like rhythm to it at all. So
Well, let me see, where did it go here? So, Men in Black is based on a 1980 comic,
oh really?
I think is when it came out. When did the first issue hit the stores? Oh, is it 1990? Is it that late? Wow, it's so weird. Some of the like comics to me they were all developed in the 1920s, and it just kept them going. I don't know why. Any comic that was started after 1980, I'm just like, man, that's a hell of a hill to climb. Like by that time, all the cool superpowers have been taken,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But the original comic book, it was kind of interesting because it was almost more like X-Files, because they dealt with extraterrestrials, and also how do they say it here? I don't want to mess this up. Where did it go? Like werewolves and alien life, demons, mutants, zombies, werewolves, vampires, and legendary creatures. So the comic book, and it was only, I think, like a 6-issue series, but they obviously got really deep, and it was a lot darker. There was a lot more visual going on within the Men in Black, people double crossing each other and all that. So I kind of like what they just grabbed onto and made it fun and just stuck to extraterrestrials. And this is officially in the Marvel universe now. It was originally published as a Malibu comic, or an RKL comic, that was then purchased by Malibu, which then got taken over by Marvel. So this is part of the MCU now. How about that?
That's cool.
Yes. All right. So those are some old, 1990. That's I don't know. I thought it said 80. They really banged this out and rushed it right to the theater. Men in Black 3, 1 hour and 46 minutes, rated PG-13, released in 2012, directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. I'm pretty sure he did all 3. I know he did 1 and 3. Starring Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones, Josh Brolin, Jermaine Clement as Boris. My favorite character, Griffin, played by Michael Stahlbarg. And then some great side characters. Bill Hader plays Andy Warhol, which is amazing. And I'm trying to think of the other guy that shows up as an agent there for a minute. I was hoping we were going to see a little bit more of him. I forgot he's just in and out. The guy from Arrested Development.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of his name? But he's really awesome. And I think that is all of my facts, and we can just jump right into Ari's overview.
So I was actually shocked. I went into this movie not realizing it was time travel. So I was pleasantly surprised. And there isn't too much time travel in this movie. It's mostly just a there and back, but they did it so well. And it's such an entertaining movie that I'm all about it. So this movie opens where there's a very bad guy alien who busts out of a prison that they built for him on the moon. And he only has one arm because Agent K, the older of the two agents, shot off his arm in the 60s and threw him in prison. So when this bad guy whose name is Boris breaks out, he says, we're going to rewrite history. It's hard to say.
We white history.
We white history. So apparently it's common knowledge that this guy, Obadiah Price, invented time travel or has a time travel device. Anyway, so he has a son, and his son is in charge of these little devices. So Boris the animal goes to the guy.
It's just Boris.
Yeah, that was a really cool effect that they did to his voice because it was creepy as hell.
Yeah.
And so he gets the device, and then all of a sudden you kind of see that like Kay, the older one, he kind of like knows what's about to happen. There have been some murders. Like Boris has a very distinct way of killing people, and they've been seeing a bunch of people show up dead. And so he kind of has the sense that he knows what's going to happen, and he sits in his home with his gun, right? And then all of a sudden, this like cool like fade away effect happens with which to show the time travel. I thought it was a really cool way that they did it in this movie. It was kind of like this green light, and he just kind of vanished. And then the apartment he was sitting in slowly kind of turned, things started disappearing and it turned into a different apartment.
Or the
And
same
it's just,
different occupants, different
yeah,
not K's anymore.
right, same apartment, but someone else lives there. And it was to show that, there had been a time travel effect and that something has changed the present. But meanwhile, Jay, the main guy played by Will Smith, he stays the same, but he has this moment of like, he looks like he's in pain, like he's like, in his apartment. And then he goes to pick up his partner the next day, and instead of his partner living there, it's it's like a Jewish family. It's like a Jewish lady and her daughter that come to the door. And I didn't realize this till the second time I watched it, that he all of a sudden is craving chocolate milk. Will Smith's character is craving chocolate milk, and the little girl she's holding has chocolate milk. And he goes, "Excuse me, is that chocolate milk?" And he just grabs it and starts to drink it. And little girl goes, "Mommy, the president is drinking my milk."
Yeah, yes. I know, that's like, it's so great that was right in 2012 too. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder if, because they would have had to film this so much earlier, I wonder if they filmed that scene and just like, well, or I guess it wouldn't have been Hillary, but I don't know who was.
Yeah, they probably filmed it like a couple different options
Yeah.
just in case.
Oh, yeah, that was, I think I caught that the very last time I watched it as well. That was really,
Yeah.
really clever.
So it turns out after Jay goes into the MIB headquarters, he finds that his partner for the past 14 years or whatever is dead and has been dead for the past 40 years. And he soon finds out from the head person in charge, who goes by O. She tells Jay that because he's been craving chocolate milk, that means he is in a temporal fracture. And basically, it's a break in the timeline, which means it is time travel.
What does she call it again? Did I write that down?
She calls it a temporal fracture.
Temporal fracture. Okay.
Yeah, break in the timeline. And because Kay died 40 years ago, there is no security system around the Earth called the ArcNet, which is specifically put in place to protect Earth from the Oglodites, which is what Boris is. So Boris the animal is an alien species called Oglodite. I hope I'm saying that right.
I want to say it's Broglodyte.
Oh, Brockla? Oh, I thought
Broglodyte.
Brogla, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So Jay finds out that it's because of time travel that there is someone who exists who has time travel, and now they all of a sudden get attacked by this alien race, and because there's no ArcNet, Earth is in trouble. So he goes to the kid who has the time travel device, and this is where I wrote in my first hole. The kid wrote down in his log that the Boris the animal has used one of the devices and jumped to the past.
Yes.
Right? So in his present log, in the book, he has Boris the animal jumped to 1965. So he jumped to the past, he changed the past, which then rippled forward to change the present. Would that have still been in his log if he changed the past?
Yeah. Because, well, no, that's right, because things are rewritten. But since we're here, this is a loop, right?
Yeah. No.
I think it is.
No, this is definitely not a loop.
Definitely not a loop?
This is a one-time thing. Yeah, this is definitely a one-time thing.
But no, because I think Jay was always there to see Kay comfort him as a child.
No, I don't think.
Because he says when they're talking, at the beginning, when it's Tommy Lee Jones and they're talking about fathers, Tommy Lee Jones gets really anxious about talking about Will Smith's father, who he knows is dead.
But it's not a loop. I guarantee you it's not a loop. This is a one-time thing.
I think it's a double loop because I think every time Boris fucks it up and every time Jay goes back and fixes it.
I very strongly disagree with that. Well, we'll talk it out and
Okay.
we'll finish the review and we'll talk about it anyway.
Okay.
So anyway, my first potential hole is how could there be a record that he jumped if he went back and then changed the timeline? But I'm sure if we like dove into that more, we could figure out why it would still be there. And then I tried to keep pausing it to see if I could see what the other entries were in the journal, and I couldn't really see it. Could you?
I did. I actually paused on it and it was so uninteresting. I didn't even bother writing anything down.
Yeah, something about hair growing or something.
Yeah, it was such a, and even like, I couldn't believe it. None of the time travelers were people we knew. Like, how could they not,
Yeah,
like,
have fun with that.
totally put John F. Kennedy's name on there or something,
Yeah,
something weird.
funny or interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the only funny things were like, grew hair, was really wet when returned. There's a couple
Yeah.
silly things when they came back, but it was interesting. Most people came back the next day, so I guess that makes sense because you want to try to cover up all the plot holes. You can't just vanish for a month, so you're always going to try to come back as soon as when you left as possible.
So Jay uses device and goes back to kill younger Boris. He's not worried about the one-armed Boris that has gone back in time. He wants to go back and kill the original two-armed Boris so that none of this would happen.
Yes.
So I thought it was a really cool effect with the whole time travel. So they had to go to somewhere really high up, really high elevation, and then set the little machine and jump off. And when you get to a certain distance from the ground, you tap the button. And then the effect is like that green light again that kind of sweeps through everything. And then you just keep falling. You fall through history. So there was like the dinosaurs, and he's falling, and you see the Empire State Building being built. And you just keep falling and keep falling through history. And then right as he's about to hit the ground, he stops. He's like a foot off the ground. And then he gets sucked back up to the top of the Empire State Building where he jumped from. And all of a sudden, boom, he's in 1969 or whatever it is. I thought
32 feet per second.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, every time they time traveled, it's like it took you back to the Big Bang and then quickly fast forwarded you. I mean, they didn't really show that, but they went back to some form of beginning of time, beginning of Earth, beginning of creation, and then fast forwarded you to where you wanted to go instead of doing it all in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was really interesting. And I like that they kind of talked about this. I watched a little documentary on the DVD afterwards, the making of it. And they're like it was a lot of fun to write. You know, your time travel gives you infinite possibilities and the absolute certainty you're going to fuck something up. So
Yeah.
and it was kind of cool and then right after that they showed the scene from the movie where the kid who's teaching Jay how to time travel is like, yeah, sure, yeah, do that. Like, he's not quite sure. Like,
Yeah.
I guess you press this button and yeah, and then every time Jay asks a specific question, he's just like, maybe.
Yeah.
It was a fun way to kind of like jump over some of the hard science, with the shoulder shrug of like, I don't know. Good luck, kid.
Yeah. So right before he did jump, he asked the kid with the device, how come I remember K, but no one else does? And the kid said, oh, because you were there. So is that why you think it was a loop?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that would be, so then I wrote down in my notes, is it old him or young him? So did the kid mean that he was there as an adult or he was there as a kid? Because he was definitely there as a kid.
Well, and that's a perfect example of leaving something a little bit vague.
Yeah.
But that, to me, makes me think that he was there as an adult, that he was always there looking on as Josh Brolin comforted him as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, like I said, I think if only Boris goes back, then you could look at it as a single timeline. But with Boris going back and then Jay going back and fucking up Boris's plan, that caused the loop that Jay is always going to have to go back and fix.
Yeah.
So there's a splinter. And then you get to Griffin, and that's where.
Yeah, I feel like the way that it was intended was that it was not a loop, but them throwing in that little part of it where he remembers Kay and everyone else doesn't because he was there was necessary for the plot, but also kind of a fun twist to add into the plot, because I truly don't think that they meant for this to be a loop. I truly don't think that, he like multiple times went back and like Boris kept surviving and then doing it again and again and again. If anything had happened once, they went back. Yeah, I'd have to think about it more because I understand how you could think it was a loop because he was there and that's why he remembers. But I feel like they didn't intend for it to be a loop, but they threw that in for fun.
But you're right, because there's no Borises left at the end of this movie, is there?
Yeah, because they kill him.
That's right. Okay.
That's why I don't think it's a loop.
Yeah, no, you're right. It can't be if there's no, because I was thinking we can have it both ways, just like the movie, where the nerds like us can imagine it as a loop and get lost in the weirdness of it, but then your run of the mill moviegoer can just be like, okay, the one true universe is restored and we live happily ever after. But if there's no Borises left, then yeah, this is, at least as far as this timeline is going, like the way Griffin explains it, is that there's a really good chance someone's going to take Boris's place.
Yeah. So Jay gets to the past and he eventually finds Kay. He tells them everything and they kind of team up together to figure this out. I'm skipping over some small stuff. I'm just going to
real quick. Jay's main plan to go back and he comes up with this when he's talking to the kid that's helping him time travel, not to run into Kay. Like, don't go kill Boris and get back here. And that plan goes to shit immediately for great reasons. But
yeah,
as far as time travel nerds are concerned, they planned it properly. Like, don't just fix the one thing and get out.
Yeah. So he ends up having to tell Kay everything, and Kay essentially believes him, and then they kind of team up to solve this mystery. And they come across a guy named Griffin at an Andy Warhol party. And Griffin is a fifth dimensional being. He lives in and can visualize an infinite set of space-time possibilities all at once. So Griffin is kind of like narrating all these possibilities that could happen in any moment. But more importantly, Griffin is, I forget the name of his species, but he gave Kay the ArcNet back in the 69, right? Which then got put into space and the ArcNet was launched, and that's what protected the Earth from the Boglodites or whatever they're called.
Yes.
So essentially, Boris the animal is trying to get the ArcNet from Griffin. So Boris steals Griffin. They chase Boris. So then they were able to get Griffin back. And then old Boris, or I should say one-armed Boris and two-armed Boris meet each other. So Boris meets his past self, and they decide that they're going to team up. And then Kay and Jay have to go to the moon launch on July 16th, 1969, the launch that got someone onto the moon. And they have to get this little amulet that has the ArcNet on it onto the rocket that's about to be shot in space. So then that's a fun little scene where you have Jay and Kay, you have both Borises essentially fighting each other on, right next to this rocket that's about to be launched into space.
Real quick, it is a Boglodite.
Boglodite? Okay.
Yeah, not that matters too much, but.
So before they do have this like fight scene on the launch arms of this rocket ship, they try to sneak into the military base where they're about to be launched off, and they get captured by military people, and the general there is about to put them in prison, and Griffin grabs his arm and shows him something. So because Griffin has the ability to see all possibilities in all dimensions, he's able to show people what he sees, and he shows this general, this tall black man, something. We don't know what it is, but he showed him something. And the general says, okay, let these people through. The general helps them, and they fight Boris the animal, the old one and the new one. And then Will Smith's character uses the device again to beat Boris. So they're standing on top of the really high platform that's like holding the top of the rocket. And Jay, Will Smith's character, runs at him, and Boris shoots his little spike things out of his hand, and it hits him, right? It hits Will Smith, and then he grabs onto Boris, and they both fall off of the arm. So they're falling, and as he's
Way
falling,
up high.
Yeah, way up high. Will Smith takes out his time device, which is turned on, and he taps it, and they do the falling through time kind of a thing. And both of them, they stop 1 foot off of the ground, and then they shoot back up onto the platform. And so time resets, and it resets to where...
I think he said it 1 minute before.
Is that what it was?
I think so. I think he just turned it back 1 minute.
So it resets to the point right before where Jay started running at Boris just before he started shooting his spikes out of his hands to him. So it's reset to that moment. So now Jay knows exactly what's going to happen, and he is able to dodge out of the way of these spikes. And he does so and gets right up next to Boris. And I guess Boris is so amazed by this that he just kind of freezes, and he says, "Impossible." And then Jay just pushes him off the top of the thing by himself.
Do we definitely see him die?
We don't see him die then, so he just hit the ground. But once the rocket launches, the flames, we see him die in the flames.
Why does Boris not remember the last minute?
That's a very good question.
I mean, it kind of makes sense that the holder of the device would have all the power, but
yeah, he got brought along in the time jump.
Yeah.
Because he got brought back up there. But yeah, it was such a quick scene, but I thought it was a cool effect.
It was really cool. Yeah, it was a really cool idea. By the way, I have it on. It's so cool. I love that I have this DVD because I can watch it at 1.5 speed in the background. So I can actually get through it in a podcast.
So the one thing that Griffin told Jay before they went in to have the big fight scene, Griffin said,
"Where there is death."
Yeah, where there is death, there will always be death. And then he said, when the arm is taken, the past will be as it was. Kay will never know you were here. So what happened originally in the past was Kay shot off Boris's arm, but then didn't kill him. He just arrested him and put him in that moon prison. So as soon as Kay shoots off the arm again, like he did originally, everything will go back to the way that it should be, right? But this time, Jay wants Kay to kill Boris. And he had mentioned that earlier on in the movie.
Does he say that?
Yeah, and Jay asked, so it would be like a reset. So as soon as he shoots off the arm, it's like a reset. And Griffin said, yes, it'd be like a reset. So both of the Borises get pushed off of the launch arms. The rocket, they get the little Arcanet device on the top of the rocket. They zip line down away from the rocket just as it's about to launch. The rocket launches into space. Arcanet is deployed, and it looks like everything is yay. Oh yeah, and as the rocket is launching, old Boris, one-armed Boris, gets burned up in the fire. So then, just as they're all saying like, "Yay, we did it," Kay, Jay, and the general are kind of congratulating themselves. No, I'm sorry, take that back. Rewind. Kay and the general are congratulating themselves. Jay is kind of like up the hill behind some trees, and all of a sudden you see the original Boris, the two-armed Boris, jump out of nowhere and shoot a spike at the general and kills the general instantly. And Kay, who in the past only arrested Boris, this time...
After blowing his arm off.
This time he shoots Boris, so Boris is dead.
Disintegration.
Yes. Now, Jay, Will Smith's character, is kind of standing away, watching this from afar because he knows once the arm has been shot off, everything's back to normal, supposedly. And, he sees the general get killed, he sees Boris get killed, and then all of a sudden there's like a van in the distance, and out of the van comes a little boy who, you can tell is the general's son, and he's saying, "Daddy, Daddy, where's my daddy?" And younger K, 69K, 1969K, realizes that this is the general's son, and then the little boy pulls out a pocket watch, and it's the same pocket watch that Will Smith's character has kind of been referencing throughout the movie. It's the pocket watch that Will Smith's dad had given him. And they had mentioned a couple times earlier in the movie that Will Smith doesn't really know who his dad is. He didn't really grow up with his dad. They didn't really say why. And so this little boy pulled out a pocket watch and he said, "My dad gave it to me." And Kay realizes who he is. And the little boy says, "Where's my dad?" And Kay kind of has the serious look on his face and decides to neuralize the little boy. So he pulls out the little like memory wiper flashy stick thing and he neuralizes the boy. And in that moment, Will Smith's character, who was witnessing all this, realizes who he is, who the boy is, who the general is, and essentially what happened to his dad. And then all of a sudden, he just gets pulled back into the present.
Yeah, I think they say that's what I was going to ask. Do they say like once you do what needs to be done, you'll be zipped back? Like he doesn't have to hit a button or anything?
They never really explain it. The time travel kid was just like, "When you're done, come back."
Okay.
But he didn't say he had to do anything specific.
Okay.
So now he's back in the present and everything's back to normal. The ArcNet is there, Kay is there, and it's a happy ending.
So, yay, happy ending.
Yay.
So I want to talk about what Kay knows and doesn't know.
Which
Because
Kay? The 1969 Kay?
all of them.
Okay.
Because so when Jay goes back and meets young Kay, Kay's got a personality and emotions and a little bit of a sense of humor. He's still, a little monotone, but he's obviously having some liaisons with some other agents and stuff like that, something that you wouldn't imagine him doing. And Jay a couple times says, "What the hell happened to you?"
Yeah.
Like, why? How did you go from this guy to the curmudgeon that I know? And he keeps saying, "I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. I don't know. It hasn't happened yet."
Yeah.
So then we realized what happened was that he had to ruin a little boy's life for a while in order to save the earth.
Yeah.
And
that's what changed him?
Hold on to that secret, because then when Jay gets back to the future to Tommy Lee Jones Kay, Tommy Lee Jones kind of has a "I know where you've been" kind of smirk to him, doesn't he? Like,
I don't know. I didn't get that sense. You feel like the older Agent K knows? No, I didn't get that sense, but I could be wrong.
Feel like he did. We'll be there in a minute, and I'll
but I
watch
mean, it
when
makes
comes.
sense because younger K didn't neuralize himself, so he would have the memory of this man coming, meeting him, saying he's from the future, knowing what he looks like.
Yeah, and the watch too. I think he sees the watch at some point because the little boy shows young K the watch.
Yeah.
And old K has obviously seen it at some point. All right, I buried the lead. I don't like Boris.
The character, the actor, what?
I don't like the character Boris. It makes this movie, that's another reason why I think this movie's I've always kind of missed what I do love about this movie, is because Boris rubs me the wrong way in every way. Like,
why?
The voice is a little weird. Which would be okay by itself, but then I don't like the character design that much. Like, I don't know how many mouths he's supposed to have, or what weird little teeth, how he's maintaining the shape of a human. His hand creature grosses me out. Like, I have a needle issue in movies, and this is like,
might be why you don't like this character, is because of that.
It's huge. Like, I don't know what it is about, like, something digging into the center of your hand. And of course, there's another set of teeth there, so his hand kind of opens up in this weird sarlacc pit. and this gross creature is crawling in and out of it. And any one of these things wouldn't bother me, but somehow they dumped so many things that I don't like into this one character that
Yeah, so it was meant to be creepy and disturbing, and it achieved its goal.
it did. And yeah, and even like I think 90% of it could be the same, but if he didn't have all these mouths all over his body, I think I might even give it more of a pass. But
Well, I feel like that is definitely MIB's MO, is having an alien that's kind of like a bug, because in the first movie it was like a big cockroach. In the second movie, it was like a bunch of snakes or something, right? The evil girl was like a snake plant thing. So I feel like, they're kind of keeping in line with their theme, which is having a creepy, disgusting alien bad guy.
and they're always, yeah, really odd shape, but somehow still manage to cram themselves into a human form to assimilate
Yeah,
somehow,
yeah.
which is, yeah, it's all pretty much it's on brand. So, but the fact that he gets so much screen time, like, and I love it when he's at Coney Island and he's pretending to be a human, and that like hippie couple laughs at one of his jokes, and then he like laughs back,
Yeah.
like tries to be a human and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I'm glad that like I think in the past when I'm just kind of watching it for fun, god damn it, I want one of these Men in Black watches. I keep forgetting. They only show it once in this movie when he's about ready to time travel at the end. But sorry,
They're cool.
I just got a new watch this week, so I'm
Yeah.
I'm noticing watches.
Yeah. It's always fun when movies travel in the past to an era that's really stylistic, So going to like the late 60s, early 70s is just so much fun to watch because you've got the style and the hair and the famous people. And so I enjoyed that a lot with this movie.
Yeah, and easy to get right.
Yeah.
The 60s, especially the late 60s, they can do that. But on the other hand, Griffin is the best.
Yes.
He's like one of the coolest characters ever, and I love, when he's talking about all the different possible timelines, uh how butterfly effecty all of these timelines are. Like in the version that he's watching, he's sitting there watching a baseball game from a different timeline. Do they call them timelines? I forget. If universes, timelines.
Alternate universe timeline.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh yeah, this is the one. It's so great." Like the reason why this happens is because there was a minor defect in the cowhide that made this baseball that forced the ball to pop up instead of hit a home run. And the only reason that outfielder became a baseball player was because his parents couldn't find a football at Christmas time, so they had to buy him a baseball.
Yeah.
And so that affected, and that was he had a lot of those little nuggets like that I just thought were fascinating.
Yeah.
And like, unless this is the universe that that someone puts salt on their fries.
Yeah, a lot of things like that. The very end scene where he's like, "Oh, is this the one where he forgets to tip, and it's like an asteroid coming towards the Earth, but then he comes back in to leave the money that he forgot to tip, and the asteroid hits the International Space Station." So,
Yeah, that's a satellite, not the space station. Because if it hit the International Space Station, then a bunch of people would die still. That would be a horrible thing.
so yeah, that's my point is, I mean, I still like time travel movies that are, the there and back movies. They're fine. They're not my favorite, but if it's a good era that they travel to, it can be fun. And this one is essentially that. It's a there and back time travel movie, but there's so many other aspects that make it great, like Griffin, who's
Hmm.
the coolest character ever, and that one little, moment where he uses the time travel again to kill Boris. So there's a lot of fun things about this movie.
Yeah, as far as like a there and back, being made cool, like this is, as far as time travel stuff goes, this is way better than Back to the Future. Like Back to the Future is an amazing movie, and I don't want to talk shit about it, but
Yeah.
like that, like time, like that's a like it's got some pretty cool science in there. But between the two DeLorean trips, he's just hanging out in the 50s.
And this movie has relatively very few holes, if any.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, and Griffith is very for this timeline, the one that they're trying to preserve, the truth is the big the holder together of this timeline. And he mentions that when they're trying to break into Cape Canaveral, he's just like, you got to be honest. And, you know, that's where he finally, you know, is super honest with Will Smith's dad, you know, and showing him. And yeah, and I think he shows Will Smith's dad that he's going to have to die. But
yeah, he almost made it seem like he knew that he was going to die, but he needed to essentially save the entire world.
So yeah, so at the end of the movie, Tommy Lee Jones is listening to Jay-Z, which they very much set up at the beginning that he would never do that.
Yeah.
And now after this, I want to see what Kay says here. Yeah, it's I don't know, the way Kay looks at that watch, because Jay walks right into the diner and sets his watch down and says, you know, last night was a really long night. And Kay's just kind of like, yep, and gives the watch a hearty, like, I remember that watch.
Yeah, I get the sense that Kay remembered all of it, but just couldn't tell Jay about it ever. And that might be why he's so serious now.
Yeah, because he just knows he can never slip up.
Yeah.
Because just like every good time travel movie, yeah, if you know too much, then you won't do it.
But then here's the question. Let's say this is not a loop. The original timeline, right, went as we saw it, where he arrests Boris and puts him on the moon. And then how does essentially Kay doesn't know who, or maybe he still killed him. I was going to say Kay doesn't know who Jay is. He just knows that there was a little boy there. He doesn't know who the little boy is, and he erased that little boy's memory. But this time around, now he knows who the little boy is. So they did it well. Whether or not this is actually a loop or it's a one-time travel back to fix things, the writers did it well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for listening to Time Pop. Brought to you by Sounds Awesome. Please like and subscribe and tell a neighbor or friend about it so you can share a discussion of your own on the topic of this movie. Please check us out on social media. We are at What Sounds Awesome on Facebook and Instagram, and at Sounds Awesome 2 on Twitter. You can email us directly with questions and comments at wesoundawesome@gmail.com. We would love to read your thoughts aloud on air, and definitely let us know about a movie you would like featured on a future episode. And Apocalypse Now, where Scott, Callum, and Dez talk about apocalypse-ish movies about society going through a difficult situation, not unlike the one we are currently living through. Want to check out some non-movie related podcasts? Check out All the Answers. You have questions? The Record Keepers have answers? Cassidy and Katie have sassy comments? Who are the Record Keepers? You'll have to listen to find out. And our newest addition to the Sounds Awesome family, Truth Not Trends. Liam Bauer and Jesse Schmidt have a combined 35 years of strength training, and they are here to keep you strong, fit, and motivated through these difficult times. Please visit our website at whatsoundsawesome.com to find all these fine podcasts, or just search Sounds Awesome in your podcaster of choice to find these fine shows. Please rate and review. And now, back to the exciting conclusion of this episode. One little note I had, it was so random. You know me, I always have my subtitles on.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere at the beginning, Kay says nada, and it just says speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
But then later on, he says like buenos noches, and they spell that out. So it was, I don't know. That's one of my favorite reasons for having subtitles on now, is just the weird quirks like that now that come up. Barry Sonnenfeld, sorry, I know I should have put this at the beginning. I thought he had done a lot more. Like, I thought he was, you know, up there. I forget that he's been in director jail since Wild Wild West.
Oh boy.
Like, I knew that really fucked him over, but I didn't realize it was still fucking him over. Like, he did the 2 Addams Family movies, awesome. He did all 3 Men in Black movies, awesome. And then he did Wild Wild West, and then he's been directing episodes of CIS ever since.
Director's jail.
So, yeah, poor Barry Sonnenfeld.
Is that movie really that bad? I never saw it.
It's actually, it's a little bit fun. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. You know, it's just, I think it was just such a monetary failure
Yeah.
that studios just can't trust him anymore. Like, I think they just dumped so much money into it.
Yeah, the only reason why I know that movie Wild Wild West is because that is the movie that Will Smith chose to do over being Neo in The Matrix.
Oh, ouch. Did I hear right? Are they working on a Matrix 4?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, something like that.
It's so funny. Griffin and Boris, neither one of them have been in a ton. I figured I just couldn't recognize them in their makeup. But one of them, I can't remember who now. One of them's going to be in all, like, he's already locked down for all of the Avatar movies coming up. All 27 Avatar movies that are going to be released in the next 10 years. All right, Ari. Well, any more law? I think we've got all the laws or holes, all the basic stuff. Anything else you want to talk
Yeah,
about?
there really wasn't too many holes that I could think of. The laws we kind of covered. I thought it was interesting, though. Never before in a time travel movie, I think, has there been 2 time travel devices. Has there been? So there were 2 of the devices, right? Will Smith had one and Boris the Animal had one.
Oh, yeah.
And that begs the question is, if they use them at different times, which timeline are they going back to? So in this scenario, Boris jumped and changed things, and then Will Smith jumped earlier to change things. And then as he jumped earlier, then you see Boris reappear for his first jump.
Oh, yeah.
So because Will Smith jumped before Boris jumped and didn't really change anything, he was still jumping to the same timeline.
God, this movie's really smart.
Yeah, it was done really well. I liked it.
That'd be a good movie, though, where you're really chasing each other through timelines.
Yeah.
And people keep changing the timeline you're on, and you got to keep going back and all that. Yeah. And were there like infinite? And I don't want to say infinite, but did that guy have like a drawer full of these?
I mean, from what I saw, it was a box, and there were 2 spaces for 2 different devices, and that was it.
Wow. How convenient.
Yeah.
Brings us to the big question. Do you use this device?
I mean, it's a pretty standard time travel device.
No.
Why?
You're jumping off in the Chrysler building to make it work. Hopefully.
Yeah, but it obviously works.
I guess in the universe you're creating, it's people know it works. They've used it before. It's gonna be fine. But if you're, I guess if you're Will Smith, if you have the fate of the universe, you got to try something. But let's just say you've never seen it work. People tell you it works, and you've got this weird kid from a Radio Shack kind of explaining it to you. Like, do you do it?
Yeah.
Gosh.
I would do it. I would do it only if I needed to, like to save the world or something major like that. I feel like this wouldn't be one of those times I would just go back and like change something stupid I did, you know?
You wouldn't go pass a test.
Yeah, I wouldn't just like go warn my younger self not to like date that person. It would be like something more meaningful, you know, you're jumping off of a building. It would be to like save something or someone.
From what I hear, you're probably going to die of a heart attack halfway down. I guess if you're holding a time travel device, there's something in your brain telling you you're going to survive this fall, so you don't go into a coma and pass out before you smack the concrete. But this, maybe I do a bridge jump and hope I might get lucky and survive the water.
Yeah.
The water crash if I don't. And so they had to go a certain height to go back a certain time, right? Like, so if you wanted to go back a week, you could like jump out of Scotty's window, right?
I don't know if the height mattered, but they had to calculate like how far up they were and how fast and how He's like, you have to push the button, when you're 2 feet off the ground or whatever it was.
That's right. They just had to hit terminal velocity,
Yeah.
which takes, yeah, they didn't do the action. I think they threw some numbers out there, but I know Will Smith said, yeah, 32 seconds per second. What did he say? I was trying to remember that. So yeah, so I think whatever it takes for you to reach terminal velocity, which that kind of makes sense. But then it's got to be calibrated for Earth, because if these aliens are traveling to different planets with different gravity, then you'd have to recalibrate your time device for that terminal velocity. I don't think I mean, again, if like you said, if the fate of the universe is in my hands, and I mean, because when he jumps, he's being surrounded by aliens that are, which is another kind of hole too. Like, these aliens apparently took over the planet 40 years ago, and they're just now getting to
Attack.
or certain building, whatever they're doing. So that's kind of a hole if they're really here to destroy the Earth. And 40 years is a long time for the Chrysler Building to survive on top of God, what's that big tower in Paris? Bugging me.
Eiffel Tower.
Thank you. Yeah, they show the Eiffel Tower getting attacked. Yeah, so if I'm probably gonna be dead at the hands of aliens soon anyways, I why not take the plunge? I'm gonna die either way. But I don't think I survived the jump in order to get to the button press, travel back in time. Or I pressed the button too early, which I don't know what that does. Probably kill me, or at least not take me back. But yeah, I'm not that scared of heights, but I'm very scared of falling. Like, my chest tightens up just thinking of falling. So I think a heart attack kills me on the way down.
The Earth is doomed.
Thanks, Des. Good job. And thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of Time Pop. I am Desmond McNeese.
And I'm Ariel Gala. Bye.
Oh, I take a few extra breaks and I stink. That was a Sounds Awesome production.